Jake, it's great to hear you play and sing. Great to hear you play that banjo. It's got 6 strings, I notice.
Yes.
Who made that banjo?
Cedars Instruments up in Dorset, Vermont.
Dorset, Vermont.
Yes.
And is the extra string extra low or extra high?
Extra low.
Extra low.
Yes.
Very cool. And I know a lot of our audience are banjo players.
Great.
So we could go deep, nerdy into banjo land if we wanted to, but we won't.
Okay. I'm following your lead.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about just growing up because your story is so cool. So Washington D.C. And you're folks in the TV news world. So you're around all kinds of accomplished people as you're growing up, I imagine.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole lot of I don't know. They sound accomplished, but I don't know if that always squares with competent in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
It's it takes all kinds.
Right. It takes all kinds. And there's multifaceted motivation for people to get there. But my theory is that kids who grow up watching their parents do things that are high profile, and in some ways kind of public, sometimes give themselves permission to just do anything because they can do that, so anybody can do that. Did that happen for you? Your universe expanded a little bit because of the work they did?
I think probably, and certainly I had a very funny experience recently where I did a Tiny Desk concert a few weeks ago, and thanks. Apparently one of my mom's coworkers sent the link to her and was like, he acts exactly like you on video. This is creepy. So it is somewhat in the blood for sure.
Yeah. And your dad was a TV news producer.
He was a director.
A director.
Yeah. So he was behind the scenes making the show run.
But the shows were big time shows, right? I don't remember the names, but what shows did he do?
He did the Chris Matthews show and then the DC portions of Nightly News for NBC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your mom was on air.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you're growing up, as I understand it, you played electric guitar, and then these two people came through playing old time music. And
yes.
And what happened? What happened for you when you heard that sound?
So I'd heard it, there's a solid bluegrass and old time contingent in DC, as I'm sure you know, and many people in here know. I think I had always heard it and not really known what it was called or who did it. It was like, oh, old people play this at the Sheep Festival. And now I'm the old person at the Sheep Festival. The twisted paths of life. I met this band called Meg and Jean and the KFB, who are still close friends and mentors of mine. I just played some fiddle for Megan's new record. And her partner and banjo player, Bern Cly, told me after the show he was playing clawhammer banjo, and I'd seen bluegrass before, but I had no idea what clawhammer was. And I said, I've never seen anyone play any instrument like that. What's going on? And he told me, oh, the banjo's descended from African instruments and, was first introduced to this continent by enslaved black people. I had no idea. So I went and started reading about it and discovered that its first major site of growth was in the Chesapeake Bay region, which is where my own ancestors were enslaved and where my family has been for several hundred years now. I grew up spending a lot of time on my grandparents' farm down there, which is part of the plantations where we were kept. I mean, we've never left until my generation, really. So it's always been something I felt a close tie to, and I think being able to musically relate to it that closely was exciting. And
it opened up so many doors and began. What's nice because it gave you a focus. It's so interesting that there's so much input in our lives, and there's so much music, and there's so many new bands. But for you to be able to make a personal connection to something that actually resonated allowed you, I imagine, to have that kind of focus as you went to college, as you decided to pursue a path in ethnomusicology and really learn about those traditions that people don't necessarily associate with Black American string band musicians. That's not something most people know about.
Absolutely. I think it opened up a lot of doors for me. I don't know that I would be playing music maybe at all, but certainly not seriously, had I not had that conversation in that bar.
Yeah.
It was a very funny small concert experience. It was like an Americana band playing in an Ethiopian restaurant and getting paid in tacos.
Yeah.
It was a very funny blend of ethnicities happening at that show.
Yeah. Well, it sounds auspicious. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get all kinds of stuff from that meeting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little more about your new project. Well, I mean, I think I should say that at that stage in your life, as I understand it, you went to college, you found another mentor there. While still in college, you started traveling and doing competitions, and you had the band, the Moose Whisperers.
Yes.
And they toured in Sweden.
Yeah, so that was kind of a pickup band that
Yeah.
we made to enter the contest at Clifftop, or Appalachian String Band Music Festival, for those who are not Clifftop initiated, but you all should be. And yeah, we were just like a bunch of dudes wanted to play in the contest, and our fiddle player was the only one awake when the sign-up time came, and he's Norwegian. So we were a knife's edge from being the whale eaters. Thankfully, he went with the Moose Whispers instead. It would have been a PR nightmare.
Yeah.
Then we won the contest, and we were like, well, now we have to have a band. What are we going to do? That was the beginning of my career.
Yeah. And touring in Sweden, your mom is Swedish, right?
By ancestry.
By ancestry,
yes.
yeah. And so did you resonate with that culture and that music in any way at all? Because there's all kinds of fiddle music from Sweden, too.
I have a deep love for Scandinavian fiddle music.
Yeah.
I do tend more toward the Norwegian side of things.
Yeah.
Sorry, ancestors. But the Swedish just are not emo enough for me.
Yeah. The Hardanger loses.
Yeah.
In case you've just tuned in, you're listening to eTown. I'm here with Jake Blount. Let's talk about your new project, The New Faith. So did I describe it fairly accurately? This is the tale of a mass exodus, or actually not mass, it's 30 people who, black and brown people who leave the southern U.S. and head north.
Yeah, so it's the story of the descendants of those 30 people who, over the course of that journey, are whittled down to 3 by different things that they face on the road, and then are kind of confined to this refugee camp up in New England and develop a new culture there that retains a lot of wisdom from that exodus, that travel, but recontextualizes a lot of the things that we might be familiar with from that. So it's all old songs. It's all traditional repertoire, drawn from the canon of spirituals, etc., but very different.
There's some new, so you didn't have to change the words to a lot of these songs, right? Just you could recontextualize them. And you do have spoken word segments interspersed among the songs where you sort of tell the narrative of what's going on and what happened and how the record starts with the baptism.
Yeah, I modeled it off of field recordings. I've often explained it as field recordings from the future. So the idea was I listened to all of these old like Alan Lomax recordings and other folklorists who went down and recorded these black religious services, and you'd have a bunch of really incredible songs, and then you'd also have these prayers kind of spoken over musical accompaniment from the congregation, which was all vocal because they weren't about instruments in church back then. We'll talk more about that later. But it led me down some interesting paths of being able to use that prayer speech as a way to kind of explain what was going on, and also let the rap do a lot of heavy lifting. One of the fun things about this project was taking these very old songs and imagining what they would sound like in the hands of people who have heard everything that we've heard now and are equally distant from it as we are from these like old slave spirituals. So like rap is to them what spirituals are to us. And that they've heard all of that. They've heard things we have not yet heard, and they also don't have the technology to produce it the way that we do now. So it was about taking these like modern production techniques and sounds and finding a way to make them with folk instruments, and finding this way to kind of merge future and past.
And I should let everybody know that this is the product of a active mind trapped by COVID at home in his room making all this up.
Nobody could tell me no.
It's a great project. It's really cool. And speaking of rap, Demeter's on there, so
Yes.
you do have this collision, this beautiful collision of cultures and sounds that seems to fit perfectly well. And it's an interesting tale, interesting combination of sounds. It's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's well received.
Yeah.
What did you call it? Genre queer? No, what did you call it?
Yes, I call all my music genre queer. But
Genre.
yes. Yeah.
Which means it's like you can't put a label on it.
Yeah. And uninterested in fitting into capitalist patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah, Colorado.
Well, it's good that you've decided to embrace every conceivable aspect of outsiderness to be a narrator for this story that is important and necessary for us to hear. It's cool. It's cool that it's coming from you. It's cool that it's a wake-up call, because this dark dystopian tale that you tell is not so far-fetched. And as we heard from Casey Becker and others, climate change is upon us.
Yes, I think one of the things that's been tricky for me about the reception of this album, even though I'm very grateful for all the coverage that it's gotten and the doors that it's opened, is that I've realized people don't really know how to talk about things like this, where it gets kind of shoehorned into like the post-apocalyptic genre or dystopian genre, where in my brain, the premise of the album is that nothing important changes between now and then, that we continue down the path that we're already on, and there is no earth-shattering doomsday event, or the opposite, that everything just continues, and this is where we land. I think it's revealing to me, and I'm still working out what exactly it means, that the idea of capitalist and colonial progress pausing means the end of the world to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the subjects of your story wind up on an island in Maine,
Yes.
which is the envy of everyone. We'd all love to be on
Right
an
now.
island in Maine. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait till the storms get bad.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, listen, I look forward to continuing this conversation. Meanwhile, it's great to get to spend some time with you and hear you play. Let's get back to music. Welcome back, if you would, Jake Blount.